Look, I opened this jar of rotten baby food, and well, a butterfly came out.
It always depends on the joke and it depends on the person. Some people have that darker sense of humor. I definitely have that darker sense of humor. So I would have been the one to laugh 100%. But some people would see it as just being.
Welcome to the Comedians in Elevators podcast. I've got my guest, Michelle Lee. Michelle, say hi, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Michelle Lee. I am a award-winning script writer. Graduated from the LA Film School, grew up in Seattle, kind of been all over the place, but primarily grew up in Seattle.
Very cool, Seattle. So are the rumors true? Is it somewhat depressing up there?
It's a case by case person or case by case basis rather. Right now I'm in Arizona. I do prefer kind of the colder weather. I feel like everything
Okay.
that I do kind of is geared towards that. Some people don't like it, some people do. I personally prefer it.
Would you say it's really the temperature or the sun?
It's the lack of sun because it can
Right.
be hot or warm, or the version of hot up there is like 82 degrees. So at about 82, people are looking for AC, but the sun doesn't always come out. It's usually overcast.
I think everybody speculated that that was the case, even if they haven't been there. So you ready to
Yeah,
get into it?
let's do it.
Listen, to my regular listeners, I know you don't like when at the beginning of these conversations I ask you to subscribe. None of us like it. I don't like saying it. I don't like it being in here. But it's frustrating. You know what else is frustrating? It's also frustrating when I look in the back end of the YouTube channel and I see that 56% of you that watch frequently haven't yet subscribed. And I know this because I see it in the comments section. You say things like, I didn't know I didn't subscribe. And that's actually what fuels the show. Basically, it's like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask all the time, because it enables us to build and build and build, and we're going for the long term here. Hit the subscribe button, and we'll continue to build this show for you. That's my promise. Thank you to all you guys that do subscribe. It means the world to me. All right. So the whole point of the podcast is to compare and contrast the comic versus the comedian. So I define the comic as any person telling funny jokes versus the comedian who's a funny person telling any jokes. So, Michelle, would you agree that you start as a comic and evolve into a comedian?
I would agree with that, yeah. But I feel like becoming a comedian requires a little bit more art. Like you have to kind of create your own niche in that. You can't just say the same funny things that you would in a conversation. It's not going to be stand up funny. So there's definitely a different level to it.
Right. So those conversational jokes you'd say are more comedic or more comic like.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's one way I define it. All right. So ready for the first question?
Let's go for it.
All right. So it's about the role of persona in comedy. So how much of the comedian's voice is a character versus the real self?
I'm gonna go like 70% real self. Everybody has an online persona. There's nothing we can kind of do to get around that. People like something that feels stable. So people kind of create a persona that will create stability for their viewers. And I think that comedians do the exact same thing. We see it with Kevin Hart all the time. We see it with even older ones like Eddie Murphy. They kind of have the same character that stays between all of their stand up, but we can see that they can do other things through some of their acting, though it's still kind of the same in a sense, but it does require a bit of a creativity to create that character that feels real and authentic, despite you definitely dramatizing a lot of what you're talking about.
Those are good call outs. So does authenticity really matter or is illusion part of the magic?
It's a bit of both because I feel like a lot of what we hear from comedians, there's little bits of truth in every joke. It's a reason why it hits so hard and why they can say it successfully because they personally went through it. So there are personal experiences behind it, but we do over dramatize it in the same way that we do reenactments. So reenactments are still true. It's just, it's not like you're standing in the room with them. It's a bit over
Mhm.
dramatized for your entertainment.
I'll go with that. All right. Punching up versus punching down. So where does a comic versus comedian stand on this? So let me put it in some historical context. Did a jealous medieval prince become the first comedian by killing the court jester?
Mm, that's a good question. Um, that's going to depend. So especially if we're talking about in that day, obviously we had things like jousting. They had games that often ended in death. So I wouldn't say the king would have been the first. However, whether it be funny or not, because he's king, he's going to get laughs.
Right. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes we do laugh when people die at the end of a joke, but that's few and
Oh,
far between these days.
very often. It always depends on the joke and it depends on the person. Some people have that darker sense of humor. I definitely have that darker sense of humor. So I would have been the one to laugh 100%. But some people would see it as just being cruel or like you kind of said, punching down. So some people are more sensitive than others. And
Now
that's
let's
going to
let's
always depend.
sure, let's throw it in another one. Would you crack a joke at a public execution back in the day?
Oh, 100%.
All
They
right.
they because especially then those were like public gatherings. It was one of the few times people actually like got together as a community to do something. So I feel like because they created it into an event, I probably would have cracked jokes just because realistically they've made it entertainment at that point. It's why people do find it comfortable to laugh when people die at the end of a joke, or if someone dies comedically in a comedy or something like that. We get a little giggle out of it.
I'm just gonna have to follow up on this one. What if you were executed because of a joke you told? Would you still tell a joke?
I'd probably follow up with a whole other joke as I'm being executed, just to double down
Oh,
at that point. It's freedom
so
of speech at that
now
point.
you've already accepted that you're going to be executed next.
Oh yeah, exactly.
All right.
If the if the consequences are set and I'm going to be executed, I might as well get another one out there before I go.
Well, wait. You just watched someone else, so you decided to jump on the train. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, why not? I mean,
Okay.
I don't unless I'm making jokes directed at the king, I don't see myself being executed. But if that ended up being it, then it is what it is, and I'll tell jokes until I die.
All righty. So, is the audience agreement with the comedian a form of permission or alignment?
Mm. I feel like some people take life more seriously than others.
Hmm.
In most cases, it is more of like a not necessarily an alignment, but definitely like giving permission in a sense. It's and it's not saying it's giving permission to like do what the joke was saying, but more so to not take maybe that topic so serious.
Hmm.
And it's always going to again depend because some people are more sensitive than others. But at least for me, I see jokes as just jokes. I have very thick skin. I don't get um, irritated easily. I don't like people can't get under my skin that quickly. So I'm not sensitive to jokes like that or of any kind, whether they be dark or whatever it is. Um,
Hmm.
but I know that with some people who have like past experiences with something, it can hit different, not because the joke wasn't funny, but because it hit a trigger.
Definitely can see. I mean, that's it's all about hitting triggers, right? So we gonna go for
We
them, or
all
we
have
gonna
one.
right, or are we gonna shy away, right? That's the whole point. So,
Exactly.
cultural translation of comedy. How do jokes that work in one country bomb in another?
Mm. Honestly, I feel like our biggest differences across countries are just our religion and how they push us to live differently. So I feel like in most cases, almost almost all jokes will translate well if put into a slightly different context so that it hits the same way that it would in the country where it originated, if that makes any sense.
Well, that means that you have to explain the origin of the joke, right?
Or you have to figure out your own origin of the joke and figure out how that would then translate to that country. Like
So
over
that's
here, we would
go ahead.
okay. No, over here we would say something like, "Oh, we're going to Christmas dinner," and in another country there may not be a Christmas, so you would translate that to something completely different and try to give something that would be in that same kind of sense.
Mm,
You'd have to translate
mm.
it to hit in the same way while speaking their language in a sense.
That's a tricky one. So with the other
It
religions
is.
in there, right? Because it's do they really translate? I mean, would it hit the same if you change it to a Jewish or a Muslim holiday? Would it really work the same way?
I feel like if you have background in it, yes. If you're doing it just because you're there in that country and you've never celebrated it, you've never been around it, obviously don't make those jokes. But what I'm saying is that it's okay to kind of rewrite your jokes in a sense to hit the audience in the same way it would like in Japan versus America or something like that. A lot of those jokes will translate. It just depends on the context. Maybe not religion specifically, because obviously that causes a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Maybe not that
Un-
specifically, but
Unintended to say the least, right? If you just don't understand
exactly.
really what you're saying. So even if there's no ill
Exactly.
will intended, right? Yeah, exactly. So are comics more universal while comedians are more culturally specific?
Mm, I think they're both honestly universal. I just think that some are not necessarily culturally specific, but some are not culturally accepted. Like I know in countries, they really don't look up to a lot of comedians. They don't like the fact that they make, light of certain things. There's just some cultures who are just not here for it whatsoever, and that's perfectly fine. But I do think that it comes more down to just what's culturally accepted more than anything else.
All right, I'm going to try and throw in I'm going to throw in a new question. Let's see if it's not it's I don't have context, but I do want to ask this. Would you agree that truth, which obviously, I mean, first, would you agree that comedians are trying to tell truth and that's what makes it funny?
Yeah, I feel
Okay.
like yeah.
Is it? Well, here's the second part. It could be just that alone, but would you say that the definition of truth is the meaning of facts?
I feel like if you're looking at it from the outside, yes. However, from a like first person perspective, your truth is always going to be what you experience. And we as humans always have an issue getting around what we feel in that experience to see what actually happened during it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was a hard one, right? So I just came up with this on the spot. So it's a little trickier. So we'll just move on to the next one and
Question. It
see.
got yeah, it was a good question. It got me thinking.
Yeah. All right. So crowd work versus crafted work. So if comics riff like influencers in the comment section, for example, and comedians perform like in reaction videos, where is the sweet spot?
Mm. So I do feel like crowd work and like actual, I guess, routine stand up are very, very different. One allows for a lot of improv, while the other kind of gives you more of a script. And while you can go improv, your script still begins and ends here. And when you're writing that kind of script, they always have kind of like I'm trying to remember the word, but it's when they say a joke, especially at the beginning, and then it's kind of like a running joke through the whole thing, and then they call it back at the end, right? Like they
Hmm.
have this ability to truly create a story, a full story with a beginning, middle, and end, first, second, and third act, and then wrap you right back around and make you feel like you really just like sat through an experience. And while crowd work can be fun, unless you're the topic of the moment, I guess it really just depends on that point on how interesting you can make your audience seem, which is not a bad thing, but it is more improv than it is like planned stand up. I feel like planned stand up is harder because you've already planned out this whole thing and you're hoping that it hits well with the audience. If it doesn't, you already have a script. You can choose to go off board, but more than likely you're going to stick to that. With improv, you can go based on the audience, read them, and then adjust as needed. I'm sure it helps a lot with building that like comedy aspect, but I do feel like there's more of an art to stand up.
All right. So what happens when a comic leans too much into crowd work or when a comedian gets heckled?
When comedians get heckled, it's usually people are highly opinionated, and that I think just kind of comes with the territory. You've given people access to you and to your words, and that's just going to be a part of it. Kind of like giving people access to your Instagram. They're going to comment. They're going to have things to say about it. There's just nothing you can do about that. Um, when it comes to what was the other part of that question?
So what happens when comedians get heckled as well?
Um, yeah, I
Or is
feel like
that?
that kind of yeah. I think that's the part that I answered. What was the other part?
Oh, that's right. Sorry. What happens when a comic leans too much into crowd work? I'm multitasking. My apologies. I was like,
No
wait a minute.
worries.
You answered. I'm
No
thinking, was that
worries.
a stupid question? Is truth the meaning of fact? Should I have even brought that up? What's happening here?
No, you're good. You're good. When they lead too far into crowd work, I mean, comedy is still comedy. It's really just when you make somebody laugh and when they start to feel good about, whatever's happening or just in that moment period, you're helping them feel joy, right?
Hmm.
So leaning further into crowd work, I think it requires more people skills. It requires more of an ability to kind of read people and their body language and adjust as needed. You can write something out, but with doing crowd work, you're always going to be searching for something that might be interesting that you can turn into something even more interesting. And I think that that helps a lot with joke building. But I also think it might make it difficult to sit down and write out a routine because you're so used to being able to adjust on the spot.
All
Losing that
right.
freedom is really difficult.
Tell me about it. All right. So
Yeah.
advertising and self-promotion. So who advertises themselves more? The comic, the comedian, or the magician? You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company. Right here. I want us to be here with free energy, where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here, where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now, and this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast to get the message out today. See you soon.
Hmm. Honestly, I think magicians have it kind of easy. If you do one solid trick and there's enough people around with cameras, you kind of go viral. Those are pretty easy. Comedy is a little bit more different because it is always a case by case basis. Some people are going to find things funny, other people are going to find it insulting, and some people are just going to skip because they think it's boring. They're not going to understand the hype behind you. And I think part of comedy is understanding that you're not going to be well liked, and some people might just like you because you make other people angry. And that
Hmm.
kind of comes to be like a part of it.
Hmm. Do you know of a comedian that does that successfully?
Dave Chappelle.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
he
I
often hits on topics that I feel like people don't want him to touch on. And
okay.
I think that some people, oh, I'm so sorry. My phone vibrated and then it fell.
What happened to the
Um,
elevator? What?
we went down.
Oh.
No, I feel like I've known a lot of people that appreciate him because of his wow factor, right? Of his ability to kind of shock and awe you with his jokes and to hit topics that other people are afraid to hit. They like him because he's willing to do that go that dangerous route for what a comedian usually does. Usually that happens, and one really bad joke that upsets one community can cancel your entire career and just stop it completely. He kind of comes out with zero fear of it, and a lot of people appreciate that about him, whether they find him funny or not. Some people do, some people don't. Some people just appreciate that awe factor that comes with him.
No, I'll go with that. So, is self promotion seen as selling out, or is it necessary for survival?
I think there's a difference between self promotion and selling out. Self promotion requires a bit of authenticity and for you to do your own work, right? That's the part of the self portion of that self promotion. So if you're self promoting, you've decided to put in the work yourself. I can 100% agree with that, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I feel like those who self promote themselves are, if anything, investing in themselves. You can't ask other people to invest their time and their money to sit down and watch you tell jokes if you're not willing to do that yourself as well.
That's a great call out. That's you got to believe it and do the same investment you expect as from the audience, right?
Exactly.
All right. So censorship and offense. So does a comic avoid offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point, like a magician?
I would actually agree with that. Yeah, I feel like again, one is very like conversational funny and they tend to try to avoid any of the like serious topics that could lead to an argument or a confrontation of some sort. They don't have like a stage between them and the people they're talking to. It's just kind of it's a circle of people. Well, a comedian can say those jokes, but they can choose to say them in the way that they want to, in a way that fits their style, in a way that fits them as a person, so that it'll either hit or it'll miss, but it's going to be authentically them. And you can feel that even when you're you feel disrespected by it. And I think that's why a lot of people will take offense directly from the actual comedian and not from the joke.
All right. So who survives better in the cancel culture environment? The comic, the comedian, the magician, or the mudslinger?
What is a mudslinger?
It's that guy in the
like a
audience with
roaster
the tomatoes when you're
with the
about to get
tomato.
executed. Yeah.
The tomato. Okay. Um, okay, so I'll say that usually the person in the audience who's the mudslinger is they were gonna have a good time regardless.
I don't know what audience like
Realistically.
we. This must be an outdoor event, right?
Right. But no, they have fun regardless, right? They're like if they go there and you're telling good jokes, they're having fun. If you don't, they came prepared with something to like throw across the stage, right? So they
I
they
mean,
obviously
you've
kind
seen the
of
videos
win
at the
out
zoo with the
regardless.
apes, right?
No.
The monkeys. You don't know what they're throwing. It's not mud.
No, it's not. No, it is not. They prepare it perfectly for you in that moment,
So
realistically.
that I mean, I was canceled at the zoo when I was like 9 years old for I don't even know what reason. So I definitely felt it.
Man. No,
So all right. So timing and delivery, is it a science or an art? So do comics rely more on structure and comedians more on rhythm and emotion?
I feel like it's an art in the same way that like rap and poetry is an art. You everybody's going to have their own style to it. And while there's, a bunch of rappers that may have a similar style, a lot of them will have a different cadence and it'll come across different. You can give them the exact same lyrics, right? And the exact same beat. And they're all going to approach those lyrics differently. So I feel like it really is an art because you can put a science to it, but there's something different when you put that human hand behind the art that allows it to actually like bloom into something that feels more personal. When you have those callbacks and those the comedic timings that come from you instead of trying to, oh well, if I stick it in here, it might it hits differently. It hits much different.
All right, I'm going to go with
Yeah.
that. Huh? All right, so laughter versus applause. So are comics chasing laughs and comedians chasing applause breaks that validate the message?
So I think that one is definitely chasing laughs. The other is not necessarily chasing applause. I feel like yes, the applause is great, but a lot of people who get to that point dealt with a lot of boos first. The
Hmm.
applause just it's kind of like the only way you know that you're doing well. That applause is kind of like your yearly check-in. Everybody has that, yearly check-in with their boss. Hey, how are you doing? We're going to do a review, see how you're doing at work, and then we'll, go from there. You're either going to get the applause and the pat on the back, hey, you're doing great, or you're going to be told you're not doing very well and you're going to leave there feeling really crappy. In this case, they either get an applause, hey, you did great, or they get a boo and they know that they have some stuff to work on because nobody liked it.
So that's an interesting analogy because I haven't really heard much booing in an audience, right? It's either a more heckling, right? Applause,
Mhm.
fake applause, laughter, or silence, dead silence. So,
Silence
um,
is a form of booing, I think.
all right, for
especially
sure.
especially when
That
you're looking for a laugh. I feel like silence is almost as bad as booing.
I would argue, I mean, realist, yeah, for sure. I haven't seen booing. I would be like, that's great. I mean, that's like a heckler. If I actually someone's boo, I'd be
Yeah.
like,
I
really? That's
mean,
awesome.
at that point you've connected with them enough to interact. I mean, I think that's why a lot of people would prefer a heckler over someone over the entire audience just being silent because at least that gives you something to work with.
Definitely, definitely. I'll take those boos all day. So,
Yeah.
so comedy is commentary. So when does a comedian cross into being a philosopher or a preacher?
When they start adding a bit more truth to their comedy, it stopped trying to dramatize it, I think. I
Hmm.
think that there's a funny way to approach a story without over dramatizing it. And it really comes out in just like the comedian's ability to act and like create those characters for you on stage.
Interesting. So you're saying really this is more about changing genres than it is about any ideological or religious reasons.
I don't know if I would say that necessarily. What I would say is that when you start looking at your reality from like a different angle, you you start to see people for more of who they are, and when you start to really understand the people who are around you, you have the ability of like mimicking them in a way that nobody else really can, right? So we see this a lot with like Kevin Hart and Eddie Murphy, their ability to kind of create these different characters on stage while they're telling a story. They're being four different people on stage, but they're not changing their clothes, they're not putting on a mask, they're not doing anything like that to confirm for you. All they're really doing is giving you maybe like a different voice or a different way of standing. They're creating these characters without having to do the whole thing for you. And they're only able to do that because they understand the people around them completely.
Okay. So is Kevin Hart an example of a philosopher or preacher?
I don't like to think of comedians as philosophers or preachers. I feel like if we're taking philosophy as just being like giving a message at the end of something, everything kind of has a message. Everything has a message, whether it be good or bad. I think that they find a way to make weird, awkward, and bad situations a little bit easier to digest.
Okay. But would you say Dave Chappelle maybe falls into one of these categories, a philosopher or preacher?
I think he's become a bit more of a preacher lately in a sense that he's starting to that he's seeing things that he doesn't like and he's choosing to say that on stage, whether that be during his stand up or whatever. I
Hmm.
feel like you become more preacher when you're choosing to stand for something that you truly believe in and it's not a part of the character. It's 100% you on stage. It's you and you're having a conversation with the audience. I feel like we see that a lot. Well, not a lot, but we see it in certain like stand up specials where the comedian's no longer telling jokes. They're just kind of having a conversation with you. We're going to wrap right back around to the jokes after this serious bit, but I'm going to get serious with you for about 45 seconds. And then I'm going to do a throwback joke to what I said about 20 minutes ago. Like we see that a lot and we don't take it super serious, but it does hit in that moment. And then we get back to laughing again and the moment's kind of gone. But I feel like when we have those moments, that's when they become kind of preachy because they are trying to have a conversation with you about something that matters to them in that moment.
So is that good or does it dilute the humor?
If the callback, if their ability to do a callback or the art of timing is done well, then it's fine. If it's if there's no callback or there's no comedic relief at the end because you're meant to be seeing a comedy, it's meant to be a comedic experience. I feel like it's okay to have bits and pieces of like seriousness, but people want to leave feeling entertained. So as long as that ending feeling is, I'm happy, I'm entertained, I got a lot of laughs, nobody's gonna think twice about it.
All right. So comedy and vulnerability. So I would argue that comics hide behind their jokes and comedians expose themselves. If you agree, which one is braver?
I'm gonna go with I agree, and comedians are definitely braver. It's
Okay.
it. Yeah.
All right. So here on the Comedians and Elevators podcast, we have a tradition where the previous guest has a question or asks a question for the next guest. And so the previous guest was Ali Palazzo. And her question for you, Michelle, but she doesn't know you yet,
Mhm.
is does size really matter?
In terms of what? Okay. No, I'm gonna say it does not. Regardless of what we're talking about in this moment, it does not matter. It always depends on your ability to do what you can with what you have.
What a nice answer. I like it. All right, last question. Legacy. Who gets remembered? Will the comics tight five survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
One more time.
Will the comic's tight five survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
I'm going to say the comedian's cultural view will be more timeless. I feel like we've seen already that comedians have, when they really throw themselves wholeheartedly into their passion, we see that they really do open eyes, I think, to a lot of different things. And despite us not liking some of the jokes they decide to hit or being offended by certain things, in that moment, it may feel like they're making light of it, but a lot of times what they're doing is getting people talking about it. And that's what we need more than anything. So, yeah.
Very cool. Well, Michelle, where can everybody find you online?
You can find me on Instagram at Red Heart Horror. That's kind of
Oh,
where I'm at for the most part. I'm not big on social media. I just started doing this because I realized I probably should. So,
I guess we're in the same boat, right?
yeah.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much for being my guest. And for everybody else, please like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.